Hey guys, it is Chad here from the Battle Warrior Podcast, and I'm just letting all you listeners know that the Battle Warrior Podcast episodes will be available across all podcast platforms, guys. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this brand new episode today. Hey guys, welcome to Battle Warrior Podcast. This is Chad on the other end here, coming from Montana, right?
Yeah, Billings, Montana.
Shane, well, I was going to break it down, but it's Shane Fichter, HAVOC mindset, old fighter man. He has a wonderful story here, guys. We're going to jump back into it because we're already talking about fighting and rolling and wrestling and all just brotherhood stuff. So welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, man. I'm glad to be here. So love what you're doing.
And I'm doing great, man. It is, you're in mountain time. I'm in central time. It's about 5:30 here in our time. Finally, Wisconsin's getting nice.
Yeah, dude. Billings gets pretty cold. We get you guys get a lot of snow and stuff out there too, huh?
This winter's been, and I'm not a negative man. We fought so hard, but it was so dark and gnarly and cold this winter. It's just been absolutely brutal. And now, spring decided to skip itself and it went right into summer here. So we went from 20 degrees one week to 80 degrees the next week. And
dude, that is Montana at its finest. Dude. They say, if you don't like the weather in Montana, wait 10 minutes. It'll change. You know what I mean?
We have a running joke here in Wisconsin. All of a sudden it'll be doing something. It'll snow the next week. And we'd be like, it's like weatherman, Wisconsin's on a bitch right now or whatever. We have just what drugs are you on or whatever. But we are so hardy up here. And obviously you're in the upper mountain tier, mountain central or whatever the nickname for it. I have family and friends in Colorado, so I kind of get that. But way up by you, man, I grew up in a blue collar family, straight heart of Midwest, and we're hardy people, and pretty much you guys are really parallel with that same up there too.
Oh yeah, man. I'm originally from California. Didn't really quite grow up in well, like you said, we talked when we were talking a little bit before this, it sometimes it'll seem nicer than it looks, but my mom was a drug addict, so it was pretty rough road.
And let's go into that because I have your notes for your story sitting in front of me here. And I'm and I have a huge history in my past. And I'm like, whoa, this dude just completely blew me out of the water. So go ahead, man. Tell people briefly where you're at and what you went through.
Yeah. So, right now I'm an entrepreneur. I own 3 businesses, motivational speaker, and I'm a mindset and business coach. So, but it wasn't always like that, right? So I grew up in Redding, California, which is way north. And we started in Corning. We moved up to Red Bluff. My mom did. My dad didn't go with. So my dad kind of escaped, kind of ditched out at 2 years old and didn't want to settle down with my mom. And, funny, crazy thing is that my dad was actually a cocaine dealer and my mom was a drug addict, right? She started off with cocaine, and then we get up way north in California where it's more meth and, more crank and biker dope is what they used to call it. And my mom was, started off when I was 5, man, everything was good. Those were some of the happiest times of my life. But as her addiction escalated, so did everything else. And when my dad committed suicide when I was 13, that's when I started, partying, started drinking, started smoking pot. And then my little sister got taken by the time I was 17 by Child Protective Services. And by this time, I'm not even living at home anymore. And that was the very first time I took Vicodin. It's right around the traumatic times of my life, I guess you could say. There was a lot of trauma throughout there because my mom was an IV user, and she used IV until she didn't have any veins left. And then she had to go back to, eating it and smoking it. And anyway, so started using Vicodin. And from that day forward, I became addicted to opiates. Now, I did have good influence in my life from my uncle. He gave me a lot of my work ethic. He raised me actually from the time I was 14 till about 18. But so I guess what I'm saying is like, when I was like 18, I was working all the time. Everybody was actually like patting me on the back. They're like, oh man, I can't believe you're doing so good. Your mom came from, drug addict, but little do they know in the closet, I'm popping pills the whole time. And that was something I actually told myself was okay because it helped me work longer. It's prescribed by the doctor, which is a very big misleading thing these days. Alcohol and pills are kind of accepted sometimes. And that eventually escalated to Oxycontin. And then by the time I was 25, I actually had moved up to Montana about 5 years before that for some drywall work and found myself here and, kind of just relocated my whole life. And by the time I was 25, and the craziest thing about the whole thing is the whole time I'm just keeping this hidden, you know what I mean? And then I first shot up when I was 25. And that ended up escalating to me not giving a fuck, right? Like I didn't give a shit if you knew I was high, I didn't care if you saw my track marks. It just went downhill from there. It all spiraled. And then by the time I was 28, I overdosed. The first time I overdosed on dilaudid, meth, and heroin, all mixed in one shot. And the other time I overdosed, I actually shot up ketamine. Went to a party one day, everybody's sniffing ketamine, and I'm like, oh, I don't do drugs like that, and they're like, dude, I wouldn't do that. That's horse tranquilizer, right? And did it anyways. Went into a fucking K-hole on the couch, flopped around like a fish, and nobody called the cops. Nobody called the ambulance. You know what I mean? Woke up, and this was like pretty close to the bottom for me when I realized like, none of my friends are actually my friends. They're just here because we're all getting high together. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, and I noticed a lot of that too, and you briefly know my past here too. So what I explained to people around me, like the last 3 years after I cleaned up, you physically and people that are like, hey man, good job, clean up. I wish I could do that, or like I'm starting to do that, and whatever the process is of it. I look at them straight out when they start the process. I look at them. I said, I'm not going to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm like, you're going to do a huge friend audit. Like there's gonna be times where friends are going to go and you're going to feel lonely. You still have to keep going. And then friends are going to come back and whatever it is, like the true ones will circle back and say, hey, congrats, man. I appreciate it. Whatever. Let's keep going. There is a time of darkness where like you're literally cleaning up. You have to, at least for me, I had to disappear for like 6 months.
Oh yeah.
And just clean up and come back. So was that the same for you?
Yeah, man. Gary Vee talks about it a lot. Like you are who you surround yourself with. And everybody says that. So I end up getting locked up. And my girlfriend at the time is actually my wife now. There's kind of like a love story all in this too. But so I met my wife about 3 weeks into knowing her. The cops end up like looking for me. So we take off out of town. She only knew me for 3 weeks, packed up, went to California. And, it was right about harvest time. So you can just imagine the dumb shit I did down in California as well. And, then found myself back up in Montana again. And I ended up getting arrested, getting locked up, and lost my girlfriend, got locked up with no shoes on. I just ran myself right into the ground. And, the fucked up thing is that my wife was an alcoholic when we met. And so then when I met her, I became an addict and an alcoholic, right? We would drink all day, every day, but she would have never been surrounded by the people that she was with when I got arrested, right? So like when I got arrested, she's sleeping on a dope dealer's floor, and she wouldn't leave that dope dealer's house because she's worried about the kids that were living there as well. But like she would have never been with those group of people if it wasn't for me. So I really beat myself up over that. But I get locked up and I go through a 35-day withdrawal. So I had gotten like on the Suboxone program, but I was like selling my Suboxone or trading them. And when I would run out, then I would start, buying whatever else I could get my hands on. The opiate withdrawal is a bitch. And so I'm on Suboxone when I get arrested, methadone. I had meth in my system. I had heroin in my system, dilaudid in my system, all of those things, along with the alcohol. So my 35-day withdrawal was like, you think about it, like I got everything I'm withdrawing in the first 3 days, right? And the first 3 to 5 days, alcohol's coming out of your system. And then the next 2 weeks, the heroin's coming out of your system. And then the 2 that are supposed to actually get you off of the hard stuff take the longest actually to really get out of your system. It's actually one of the longest withdrawals there is. So like the methadone and the Suboxone were, easily a month. And that rock bottom still though, like just to emphasize the mind of an addict real quick, that still didn't knock me off my horse. Like I thought I was good. And then they gave me the opportunity to OR. So I go into the freaking courtroom and I'm like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, just jumping through these hoops, to try to get out. Like I could see the light, and like mid-sentence, I'm like, I could hear the bullshit coming out of my mouth for the first fucking time in my life. Like I'm literally telling the judge, because I said, I'm going to go stay at this sober living house. It's like it's called the Annex House. And the judge is like, well, they won't accept you while you're incarcerated. So I have to let you go first. What if I let you go and then they don't accept you? I'm like, oh, I'm going to go stay at the Royal 7 Motel. And I was starting to say, I'm going to go stay at the Royal 7 Motel with my girlfriend. And the Royal 7 Motel is a motel that, like, I think 2 or 3 years ago, meth blab blew up underneath it, So it's like, like I'm saying this bullshit. And for the first time, and I just stopped and I was like, you know what? Looked at my PO. I was like, if you let me out of here, I'm just going to fuck this up again. I was like, you just let me sit here till I go to treatment. And, I don't know how many times you've got locked up, but when you get locked up, the only thing you're worried about for like 30 days is what's going on outside. What's my girlfriend doing? What's my stuff? Where's my stuff? Who's putting money on my books? It's just like, you're just stressing out on the phone. You're a mess. After that situation, I'd already lost my girl. I didn't even have shoes on when I got there. Like I had nothing else on the outside. I accepted where I was. I started journaling, started working on myself, started running, started working in the kitchen of the jail, and was just like, okay, this is where I'm at. And this is what I got to do. I got to work on me,
Yeah.
And I started to just become addicted to it, the same way I was addicted to heroin and stuff. So to answer your question, I actually had them relocate me completely. Okay. So at this time I'm living in Bozeman, Montana, which is where everybody I know is that's fucked up, and I know all kinds of people in California too. And I mean, don't get me wrong. It ended up being that there was some people I knew here in Billings, but I was in pre-release. I had nothing but me. I was lifting weights. I was, feeling good, feeling healthy. And I completely took myself away from that crowd of people. And, the one thing I feel like really, really, really like saved me though, and turned me into who I am today. I ended up going to the Metra, which is like an arena here, to watch some MMA fights. And I just remembered what I wanted to do with my life, right? So like I wrestled through high school, just like you said you did when we were talking before. Wrestled through high school, did a little bit of jiu-jitsu with my buddy's dad. And like my buddy's dad had built like an octagon in their backyard, my buddy Justin. And we would like train in there. His dad would show us like moves because he was obsessed with pride. And he had actually was in the Navy when they were going around doing those Pat Miletich camps. So he knew some stuff. And then they would go out of town, we would get all wasted and just beat the hell out of each other. But I remembered that. Like I remembered the joy that gave me when I was at the Metra. And dude, that next day I just went into the grindhouse and I was like, I want to fight. I want to train to fight. And my mentor coach, at the time, he still is a mentor and coach for me, but Will Grunhauser, he owns the Grindhouse, pretty much took me under his wing, dude, and just turned me into this machine. I technically hadn't been fighting or training my whole life, but I had grit. I was an addict that wouldn't fucking give up or quit. You know what I mean? I had been in a fight or two on the streets, so I wasn't scared of a punch, and I hit it like a fucking heroin addict, dude. I trained like it was my fix. I was in there 6 hours a day, every day, even when I was working doing drywall. So I was raised doing drywall. So most of my life I did drywall. And even when I was doing drywall, I would, go to the gym in the morning, lift weights, and then I would go do drywall. And then I'd be at the Grindhouse after work. And, was able like a year and a half in to actually quit working full time because I had acquired, enough sponsors. I would just go in these businesses and just pretty much sell myself. I'd be like, this is why I'm going to be in the UFC. You know what I mean? Just telling them and would get them all pumped up. And so I was able to acquire a lot of sponsors, given to that, the fact that like Billings, Montana, dude, this community is so supportive. It was amazing, really. And I quit working about a year and a half into training and, did a lot in the sport in about 4.5 years. In 4.5 years, I went to Thailand, trained and fought in Thailand, fought in Colorado in a world tournament called the King of Sparta, and trained with some of the best in the world, trained with guys like Alistair Overeem, Gilbert Burns, Drew Dauber, the guy that actually retired me, and we'll get to that, but was Takeshi Sato. He's a UFC fighter in the UFC right now. So,
yeah, no, and that's, there's as listeners here, guys, there's something that me and you were talking about before I said go. And it is when you want that high so much, and I'm not going to go on the drugs in general, there's like a different gear we have.
Yeah.
And it's, and we were talking about like the old routines. Like I would get home at 3, start drinking, whatever, till 10 o'clock at night. You would shoot up or whatever the situation was. The people that usually have, and this is what I love about podcasts and industries that we're in, the people that are messed up or were messed up are now out in this industry helping people succeed. And they're like, how are you just literally loving this sport and fall in love with it? Or how do you have this extra gear? Because people are like, you're hyperactive. You never stop. You just go. And they're like, how do you have this extra gear? I'm like, because I was addicted to 2-3 things already. And I fucking love what I'm doing. Like this is not my full-time gig yet, but I wake up, I smile. I'm like, dude, I'm podcasting, or I can do a pair of lines or what.
Hell yeah.
So for me, I put my focus in fitness supplements, apparel lines, and there's a repeated pattern with the industry now, just because there's so much of it and it's so easy access of it now. But for me, it's like, I love this e-commerce shit. I love this freaking podcast and shit. I love all this stuff because it's like, you almost heal yourself in this. But to get back to the thing I was going to explain is, when everyone stops at 8, we have 10, because we know what it's like to drop everything it is to get that level. And it's just such a tunnel vision that we have to go that. So explain to people exactly what it is. I can sit here and talk all day about that tunnel vision, but go ahead.
Oh, dude, that's so crazy you say that, because I actually talk so when I first started finding out that I wanted to be a motivational speaker and stuff, I was going up to a treatment facility here called Rimrock. And that's exactly what I would tell them, dude. I go, were you guys not, before you ever touched drugs, were you guys not the type of people that went all in on everything you fucking did and had to be the best? Dude, almost every single addict I talk to, that's the situation. You know what I mean? Yep. Or I ask them, this is like scenario play. I go, you wake up, you're dope sick. You have no money, you have no job, you have no food, you're sleeping on your buddy's floor. You have no way to even make any money, but you tell yourself, I'm going to get high today. Do you? Damn well you get that shit done. And this is kind of what's really funny about this is a lot of people give themselves limiting beliefs because, I could never have a business like that. I was a drug addict, or I could never have a house like that. I was homeless. Well, no, dude, you have had to scam, scheme, and problem solve to make things happen out of thin air your whole life because you were an addict, because you were an alcoholic. I used to go, or here, actually, we'll even rewind even farther, right? Because I used to tell myself all the time, I can never own a business. I was a drug addict. I'm a poor kid from the ghetto. Well, let me explain what this poor kid from the ghetto experiences. When I was 4 years old, and I've told this story a million times, it sounds like a broken record, but I love it. Dude, when I was 4 years old, my mom would take me down to the liquor store with she would have the book of food stamps when they used to be the ticket, right? And she would go, okay, honey, take this food stamp in there, go in there and get yourself a piece of candy, and then bring mommy out the change. She'd have me do that about 3 or 4 times. And then she would do it a couple times because they give you real quarters and nickels back. Next thing you know, she'd have a handful of change so she could get a beer, pack of cigarettes, toilet paper, whatever we needed. Dude, that's problem solving. That is entrepreneurship at its finest, dude. Like I found that I am really good at solving problems, really good at making niche businesses because I know how to create things out of thin air. So do you, you know what I mean? Like we've all had to do some kind of hustle or some kind of scam or some kind of scheme, you know what I mean? Or the next one, I used to take DVDs and CDs from Walmart and go down to the pawn shop and pawn them. Now, I don't suggest you do that. That's not a good idea, but that is a great business model. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, rip the tag off and go.
Yeah, dude.
No. And that's the thing I was sitting and laughing at and smiling at, because a month ago, and I'm gonna use this for example. So like, I'm trying to get my supplement line public into stores. And right now my supplier, just the system they have set up does not have a UPC system for publicly. Like they want one-on-one, they want drop shipment, whatever it is, that's how they run their system, which is great. And for like a month and a half, I kept calling my buddy up. I'm like, fuck, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. And all of a sudden it clicks. I'm like, wait a minute, make a space on the label. All the t-shirt brands have a UPC that's a sticker. And I'm like, okay, so how do we do this? And how do we look at it? And I look it up. It's like, dude, you can print them all out like a shipping label, like a standard, like envelope shipping label, relabel, throw that UPC on that thing and out the door. I'm like, okay, there's the answer. Yeah. Okay. So now how do I back it up and put on my product?
Right.
And I look, I'm like, they're all tags. Like every t-shirt brand, it's a little square tag with a white box where you put the UPC. Yeah. I'm like, fuck, why don't I just put a white box on my label? And then I have it in there. And everyone, and all of a sudden my buddy's like, welcome to business.
Yeah, dude, for sure, dude. That's genius. That is genius.
And what it is you were talking about, you're like, dude, I'm from the ghetto and whatever it is. And my running joke is I grew up as a blue collar kid. I can name all kinds of excuses, but like I'm an old addict. I grew up blue collar, barely anybody, one guy in my family has it, like my life is 50,000 a year or less, whatever it is. Like we could throw millions of things in there.
Yeah.
And finally I'm just like, yeah, but I don't want that. I want more as driven for the money, not that. Yeah. It's like, I want the fucking freedom to where,
for sure.
And I use this, for example, is someone's like, what makes you happy? I said, if you literally give me a UTV blasting through the mountains, just bury that bitch and look at it, say, all right, it's Tuesday afternoon, dig it out, let's go. And they're like, that would make you so happy? I said, yeah, because all you fuckers are working on a Tuesday. I'm up in the mountains burying a UTV. No one has that option. And it's not because like and we can joke around in all the groups and stuff. People, there's guys in every group that has fancy, flashy shit.
Yep.
That wants the watches, the hats, whatever. Like I never, like for me, I'm half farm, half city. And what it is for me, whatever it is, I'd rather be in the woods. I'd rather be killing something, not people, just animals, guys. And just being a complete freaking redneck country boy that just doesn't care.
You need to come up to Montana, bro. You'll love it up here.
You're not
at least for a visit. You know what I mean?
You're not the first person that told me that.
Well, honestly, I think that I could hook you up with couple people up here that'll run your product maybe, so maybe you'll have to make a trip anyways, right?
Absolutely, man. There's always a business trip involved with that.
Heck yeah, man.
Here's a little tip here, guys, and some of you guys that don't understand business, if you make a AKA business visit, you can write all of it off. So when you go on vacation, people go on vacation for business.
For sure, man, for sure.
I'm not your tax accountant though. Go see your tax for advice. But that's what it is. So it's like, in the supplement business for me was a oops. And I want to give Mike a shout out here. My first inner circle call, it was, Jason DeRose, who does all the supplement lines. And Mike's like, okay, guys, these three guys, I want you to talk to them. And I'm like, I don't want a fucking fitness business. Like, I'm like, I run for a living. I lift weights because I do it because I want to get healthy.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yep.
And I'm like, wait a minute here. Who in their right minds in the Midwest owns a supplement business? And I'm like,
right?
Me.
Hell yeah, you do.
I'm like, it's a fucking rarity.
That's good, man. Niche. That's good.
And what it is, and I'm actually signed up for a marathon, but what it is, I look at 1%, either it's income or anything, or like what Mike would joke around, say only 3% of people in the world write a book. And I'm like, okay, so I already wrote a book. All right. So now what's the 1% mark? And it's not because I want to beat everyone and say, hey guys, I beat all you guys. No, it's not that. It's a little mini challenge that I could do to myself, keep me in sync and say, okay, I'm a 1% on that. And now I can go to the next one. I'm 1% on that. And for me, it's like, if I know I can keep repeating these 1% patterns, finally, I'm going to be up in that 1% with everybody.
Dude, that's awesome too. And, you know, like on that note too, like when you say like, you know, it's not about money, you know, this is also the fact of it, right? Like, you know, maybe you're not driven by money and that's all you want, but I heard somebody say once, if somebody thinks that money can't buy happiness, they've been given enough away. You know what I mean? So like, by having that freedom, how many people can you help? You know what I mean? Like, especially because you're in the space of helping people. So give those guys the most money. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And there's things I do behind the scenes that I won't even get credit for, and I will be public now, but like, in this city, we have a huge homeless issue. And what it is one of the local coffee shops called up and they're like, hey man, you know, this paid forward meal is absolutely empty. And I'm like, you know what? You know, like all my bills are paid. I do have a little extra fund. So I'm like, fuck it. So I walked down there. I said, what does it cost to put $100 of food up there? And the guy's like, nice. What? I'm like, he's like, do you want your name? You want to go public? No, just write change of culture or thank you or whatever on him. He's like, you seriously don't want to do that? I'm like, it's not about me, man. Just fucking put it on.
Hell yeah.
And I did that twice already. And I think deep down, and all you guys that's in the church world and stuff, tithing, you know, like 10%, donate, whatever. It doesn't matter how you're serving as long as you're donating something back. So like if it's bringing food to, you know, food to the shelters, clothes to the homeless, whatever. Like I love doing that because it keeps me going. It keeps me being not so, I have self-centered issues just because of what we go through, but it just helps me break free and be a lot nicer in the community.
Dude, and it makes you feel good, like in here, you know what I mean? That's what I love. I love that warm feeling of it, you know,
and it's awesome seeing some of these coming in at the church. And I'm not going to go on the faith journey here as much, but walking in and one guy walks up, gives me a hug. He'd be like, hey man, here's my friend so-so. And I'm like, and I brought him to the side a little bit later. She went to the bathroom. I'm like, is she the one that's going to the shelter? Yes. I'm like, is she the one that's taking meals off that wall? Yes. I said, do I need to refill it? He's like, I didn't know you're doing that. I said, no, seriously, do I need to refill it? He's like, you keep doing whatever you keep doing. He's like, I didn't know that was you that's putting it on the wall. I'm like,
that's awesome, yes. Dude.
So it's very cool watching the full circle of everyone kind of surviving. And you get it because a lot of them on the street that are homeless getting food out of these shelters either are addicts or they got kicked out of their house.
Yeah, man, for sure. And a lot of them are struggling with mental health issues and all that, man. Like, and like, I want my kids to see that, right? Like when we, on Easter, we take my kids downtown and like, you know, go give, you know, homeless money and stuff like that. Just cause like, I think that that's something we need to spread, you know what I mean? Like more people need to be helping, you know, their fellow man. I mean, all over the place. It's definitely a huge underrated thing because I am a strong believer that like, if you put good vibrations into the world, you give good vibrations back. You know what I mean? And like not expecting anything in return, just putting out the good vibes and the universe takes care of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's so important. So important. So I used to be the guy, dude, even after my sobriety at first, because I even talk about this too, is like a lot of addicts or even after getting out of addiction, there's an anger, right? Like you're just resentful towards the past and everything. So like, I felt like, you know, oh, well, screw Walmart, they owe me something, right? So like, I would like not scan stuff and everything like that. And then I just woke up one day and I'm like, no, dude, this is what's messing me up. I'm going to not scan this, drive out of here and get T-boned. You know what I mean? Like, not only that, but like, I was like, this is taking from somebody, whether it's the guy that's working at the door, shaking hands, it's coming out of somebody's pocket, or it's going to affect more than just the guy that's taking in all the money. You know what I mean? So like now I went to go return some drywall about a year and a half ago. And like, I had like 8 pieces of drywall in the back of my truck, and I go inside and I'm like, hey, I need to refund this. And they were like, yeah, go outside. They refunded me my money. And they're like, go outside. Somebody will be out there to help you unload it here in a minute. I waited like 20, 30 minutes. And dude, at the time I'm running a drywall business. So I'm like, dude, I got to go. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't leave, dude. I would not leave. I unloaded all that sheetrock myself. I'm like, nope, I know how this is going to end. You know what I mean? Like, I ain't going down that road again.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, one of my worst weeks ever, I actually had I had my not worst week. It was a great week, but it was like build up to my book launch. And I'm just going nuts and crazy. And all of a sudden this girl fucking like turns right into me. I smashed my car up. I'm like, now what? Like in 3 weeks, it went from like bed bugs to car accident. And then finally my book gets released. I'm like, wait a minute, this is awesome now. But what I know is when there's a storm of shit happening, there's something better that's waiting at the end of that storm.
Dude, so I'll tell you a little story. It's a Zen short. Okay. It's called The Farmer's Luck.
Yep.
So there was a farmer, and one day his horse got out and, took off, and his neighbors came over and said, "What's such bad luck?" Like sympathetically. And he says, "Maybe." The next day, that horse comes back with two wild horses. And then his neighbors once again come over and they're like, "What good luck?" And he goes, "Maybe." The next day, his son tries to jump on one of those wild horses and gets bucked off and breaks his leg. Once again, neighbor comes over, "Such bad luck." He says, "Maybe." The next day, the army comes traveling through the village to draft little, young men for the war. And they just look right past his son because he had a broken leg. Once again, neighbors came over and said, "What good luck?" And he says, "Maybe," right? Like every single thing that you look at bad is there for a reason. You know what I mean? Like if I was never the person that I was, or even going back farther than that, if my mom was never the person she was, because my mom went her whole life, never got rid of that addiction. And at the last 5 days of her life, it was like some of the saddest things I'd ever seen. My mom was so regretful, so resentful about her life, like, so unfulfilled with the life she lived. And I was able to like sit with her like the last day and talk with her. And I told her, I was like, "Mom, like your life so served a purpose because you created me and my sister, and we're doing amazing things in this world." And I made like a promise to her. I'm like, I will impact as many lives as I can. And that is from your life, because, the fact of the matter is, we weren't addicted to a substance. We were addicted to filling the void in our life with a substance, right? So like my mom, and this is the crazy thing about trauma too, is my mom didn't even know she had trauma. When I asked my mom, I was like, "Hey, what do you think traumatic happened in your life that, made you a drug addict?" And she said, "I had a great childhood." You know what I mean? Well, my grandfather was married to a lady named, well, it was like my grandma Jerry, right? It was my step grandma though. Okay. And this was kind of something that wasn't really talked about in my family, but my grandma Jerry was his secretary, right? He had an affair with my grandmother, with my grandma Jerry. And my mom like caught them when she was 8 years old, like caught them. But my mom didn't understand it at the time, right? She didn't understand what was going on. So my grandfather starts like spoiling her, afraid that she's going to talk, right? And that spoiling went on her whole life. Like my mom, like she always got bailed out, you know what I mean? But about 10 months into like this affair is when it kind of gets exposed, right? And my mom, as an 8-year-old little girl, realizes I knew the whole time, but she didn't do anything. Like, dude, that is traumatic as fuck. You know what I mean? Like, so my mom's life broke the cycle of that. You know what I mean? Like not only will I like try to save as many lives as I can, but like I will learn from my grandpa's mistakes. I will learn from my mom's mistakes. You know what I mean? To break that cycle. Right. So like Will Smith says, he says, it's not your fault that these things happen in your life to created you to be this person that you are, but it's your responsibility to stop being that person, to face these things and work through them and break that cycle. That is your responsibility. You know what I mean? So my mom served that purpose.
Yeah. And what it is, and what I'm noticing now is I'm 36 and I'm thinking you're right in that range too. Like
37.
Yeah. Our generation is actually that first generation where we're like, and I asked my sister that she just turned 40. I'm like, when did it start? All of a sudden mental health just click. And we're like, hey, we have a huge mental health issue. Not us, but like the world.
Yeah.
She's like, when people started coming back from the sandbox, Afghanistan, Iraq, and all that stuff, I said, when was that? She's like 2012, 2013. I think she was still serving at the time. And I'm like, so all of us that are 25 or older completely like blew through all this. And all of us are carrying all this trauma that we don't know how to heal yet.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah.
That's
I said, so
powerful.
yeah, I'm like, so all the grandmas that are like 80 years old, 75, 80 are holding everything in. They never had a chance to talk about it. And I'm going to use my parents now are, I think my mom's just a hair over 60. They experienced a lot of suicide back in high school. They never talked about it. Like, she's like, we had friends that, you know, shot themselves, overdosed, whatever. They never talk about it. And she's like, I don't get why you guys are talking about it. And she's like, it's so open now with social media and all that stuff. I'm like, no, I said, we're trying to heal it. We're not trying to talk about it. We're trying to get whatever it is in our past to say, hey, let's fix it and go forward. Yeah. And that's the thing that I notice. They get to the end of their lives and you could just, and I'm gonna use my stepdad, for example, love him to death, but like, you could just see it just boiling out. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, bro, like, go fucking fix it. Yeah. Well, I don't know how to. I'm like, I could see all the trauma just oozing out of your skin.
Yeah. Dude, people ask me, they're like, dude, how do you like wear your story on your sleeve? Like, is that hard or whatever? And I'm like, or why, you know, some people are like, why are you so open with your story? And I'm like, you know, I'm not doing that for them. Like, every time you tell the story, it takes the power away from that story. And it also makes it more empowering for me and hopefully the other people that hear it, you know, like that's what I'm trying to do. Like,
and I'm going to ask you this question because we're both recovering addicts.
Yeah.
You can literally look at a person probably within an hour, know they're either on something or have issues with something or whatever. Yeah. And they're fighting it with something else.
Yeah, man. You know, not only that, but I was raised around it. Like, I know, like, you know what I mean? Like, I know, like, when I was, man, I caught my mom and stepdad smoking, on tinfoil when I was like 8 years old. You know what I mean? So like, it was always around. And, you know, I can spot it a mile away, you know, and actually what's crazy too, is like when I started HAVOC Mindset, it started as, you know, I was working with addicts. I was working with people, just people that were having heavy trauma and just addicts. But then I started having like other people, like other business owners and other people like, you know, wanting to get on. And so now it's like, okay, you know, we coach mindset and business. But you know, our direct, probably like perfect client is somebody who has had trauma. And when I say trauma, I don't mean like they had to have like a complete traumatic past, because like one of my clients, her family was incredibly religious, like, and I mean, like really hardcore. And like, she's just now figuring out who she is, because everything she was doing in her life, she was doing it to the expectation of her parents. You know what I mean? She didn't even know who she is. So we take people that don't feel like they have the capabilities of starting a business, of living the life that they want to live, or chasing their dreams. And we help them understand that because of the crap that they've been through, they're capable of achieving that thing. You know what I mean? And this could be anything. Like, this could be somebody just being abused, and somebody's like, oh, well, what kind of skills and talents would I adapt from being abused? Well, first of all, you're going to have to be like, I'm sure that if you were like a certain type of person, some days your abuser didn't like hit you or whatever. That's like relationship, you know what I mean? That's sales. You know what I mean? Like, sales is like relating with somebody, is like being like a chameleon, you could say, right? And I guess maybe I'll jump back real quick if you're all right. I'm going to jump back and just tell everybody why I had to retire MMA. Cause I'm sure that's the question right now. I was like, how did he get into business? Like, so, you know, my main attribute to fighting was grit. It was, you're going to have to fucking kill me to get me out of this cage. You can even actually, if you watch my highlight reel on YouTube, just you put in Shane Fichter highlight reel, I have 2 fights on there that are pretty gnarly. And a lot of my fights were like that. But I had one fight on there that was like Rock'em Sock'em Robots, dude. We're just like going to town. And then the last fight on that reel, I ended up getting choked unconscious about 6 to 7 times and wouldn't tap. But my body kept kicking. I kept like like fighting and wouldn't give up. And the ref couldn't see my face. So I literally, you can see it in the video, I go in and out about 3 times. I think that had a lot to do with my retirement, like honestly. But before I ever even fought, right, had those overdoses. Doctor said that probably had a lot to do with it. Got hit in the head with a beer bottle. I've been stomped on in my jail cell. One of my fights, like
the traditional hockey team.
So MMA gloves only come to here, right? Cody Vukasin. I had one of those double-sided mouthpieces. So your mouth's not all the way closed, right? And his hand went like this. And my tooth ended up in his knuckle, dude. And we fought 2 more rounds after that. So we're just like slopping blood back and forth. You know what I mean? Like it was crazy. But, that being said, me and Kobe Jeffers, who was my business partner in the Kava Bar, he's the co-founder of the Kava Bar that I own. We were also training partners in MMA. And we both got invited out to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, because we had turned in some resumes. We had been going down to Denver and training with at Easton's with Elevation Fight Team. We were training, we're a Bang Muay Thai affiliate. So we were training with Dwayne Ludwig a little bit. And
so before pause here, did they take you in the mountains to train, or were you in Denver?
In Denver. But dude,
okay.
I did train one time though up in Laramie, which is like super high elevation. Yeah.
I have family out there. So like I driven through Highway 6, which is like Dillon all the way down to like Salaya and all that stuff. So yeah.
Dude, the elevation changed hardcore. I fought King of Sparta, dude, and you can feel it. Like, not only that, but my nose has been broken like 4 times. So like when I start in the 3rd round of the fight, I'm not breathing through my nose. I'm like, so we get invited out to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We start training at Hard Knocks 365 with Henry Hoof, who's like one of the greatest coaches in the world right now, I'm pretty sure. He's had like 5 fighters now just killing it, like Gilbert Burns, Michael Chandler, Robbie Lawler, just monsters, dude, just absolute monsters. And, we were there for about a week and a half. They accepted us on the team. We were like, that was it, dude. Like, and honestly, before I even left, I talked to all my sponsors and I'm like, this is it, boys. I'm going to UFC. Like, this is the trip that's going to change everything. Right. And I'm all in on UFC, on MMA too. Right. I'm all in on MMA. And I end up going out there. Me and Kobe are there. And about a week and a half in, I'm sparring with Takeshi Sato. He's a UFC fighter. And he's a ninja, he's a southpaw, Japanese dude. And he's just like a ninja. So I ended up walking into a left hand. I kept running the same hop switch move on him over and over again. And he just timed me. So I ended up walking right into a left hand. It was like this, like hit the button right there.
Yeah.
Dude went stiff as a board, dude. It was like timber and fell over. I was out for like 2 minutes, 1.5 minutes. I can't remember any of it. Gapped out the whole day. They had to tell me like over and over and over again what happened. It wouldn't register in my head. Kobe said I wandered around lost looking for my cell phone, asking the same question over and over and over again. And, it was scary. The next, like 2 days after that, I tried shadow boxing, tried to get back on the mat. And, one of the coaches was like, nah, Cami Brazzini was telling me like, no, you just need to stay off the mat. And like for 4 or 5 days, dude, he's just hovering. He's like, going behind my back and talking to Kobe and telling him like, hey, you should just have him chill. You should just have him, when you guys get back to Montana, tell him to go fly fishing or something. And then before I left, he had a pretty serious talk with me that was really powerful for me. He's like, I've seen guys progress in this sport, dude, and they get to a point where they can't take a shot and they get that glass chin. And he's like, and it's all downhill from there, and at the time, I got 2 kids, dude. I'm like 34 years old, 2 kids. And, I had a late start in MMA, right? So I decided to retire. And this is a point where a lot of people would have relapsed, or went backwards, right? But because of the journaling, the meditating, everything I started doing, like I said, in jail and stuff, I knew where I was going. I knew I wanted to be a motivational speaker. Yep. And I already had this idea for this drywall business because the whole time I was doing MMA, I was doing like little patches on the side. So I came back here, dude, and just started telling first of all, I had to call all my sponsors back that I just told that I was going to the UFC and be like, hey, I don't have enough money to get home. They gave me enough money to get home. I came back and I just started telling all my sponsors that did like construction work. I'm like, I'm doing drywall. And dude started the Patch Guy, which is my drywall business. And we did $350,000 first year. And about 6 months after that, me and Kobe, my training partner I told you about, when we were over in Florida, we went to this kava bar, right? And 6 months after starting the Patch Guy, we started Kava Roots. And yeah, man. And I can, go a little bit more into detail on like how I got into like coaching, but do you know what kava is?
No, the one that, and there's one actually, not say kava, but I know a friend of mine just opened a protein shake bar down in Tampa. So I don't know if it's kind of on that same parallel side where it's like more of a non-natural, like not natural store, but like alcohol-free store that people can come to and have a good time.
Yeah. So kava is a plant from Fiji, Tonga, Hawaii, any of the South Pacific Islands. Yep. And traditionally, actually, they take the plant out of the ground, they grind up the root, and then they strain it with like water and they shoot it out of a coconut shell. Wait, did you say your buddy's in Florida?
Yeah, he's in Tampa. He owns Royal Nutrition, I think is what it's called.
Nice. Yeah, dude. Kava bars are like just blowing up over there. Actually, they're blowing up all over the United States. It's a completely natural plant. It kind of tastes like dirt water. You shoot it, and what it does is the kava lactones lower your anxiety levels and give you that same social talkative feeling that alcohol would give you, but no drunken impairedness. It's more like, I wouldn't call it mood altering. I'd call it more like body altering, kind of like, but it actually opens up cognitive thinking and makes you more focused. So the great thing about a kava bar is it's all about the conversation. It's all about, and kava makes you want to talk. So like in a kava bar, you'll end up having like really just passionate, therapeutic conversations, it's life-changing. We've had tons of testimonials that say people saying that place has changed their life. I've actually used kava and kratom to get my buddy off of alcohol. He was drinking about a half gallon a day, and I was able to wean him off of alcohol with not even a shake, dude, or a trimmer.
Oh, yeah. I know what that feeling is.
I bet you do.
Like, don't fucking get near me because I'm shaking like a crack addict right now.
Yeah. It's bad news, dude. And you're right. Like the last time he quit, he had hallucinations, almost died.
Oh yeah.
But I bought a pint and I just like made him a drink as he needed it. And I would replace it with kava and kratom. And then about 8 days in, he was down to like one twisted tea a day, dude. And then completely cut him off all the way, just replacing it with plants, dude. Just natural plants. You know what I mean? Natural herbs.
And that's a trend. And we're going to wrap it up here soon because I know we both have stuff to get to. But the thing I want to ask you about is in all the sports industry now, that's a trend of walking away from the doctors. And I don't know if it's because of the painkillers in the past with all the sports and wrestling and all that stuff with all the deaths coming, but all of a sudden now you see a lot of this, I'm going to say Eastern medicine, but like China, islands, whatever it is, like
Thailand,
where you have all that natural root, all the natural, like you were talking about, what's the other one? Maca, kratom. All these. Yeah.
Kratom. Yeah. My wife brews kratom tea, dude. It's once again changed my life. It curbs alcohol cravings. It's all natural. Now, kratom is slightly addictive, right? But like I said, it's a plant. It's never killed anybody. And I actually take it, but all I do is drink some tea. My wife makes this tea and she strains out all the plant matter. So it's actually like a golden color and it tastes good if you mix flavoring in it. And it's not as like heavy. You don't withdraw as bad if you were to stop taking it. Now sugar, coffee, like all those things, same thing, like there's addictions out there that people take every day. You buy it at the grocery store, you know what I mean? So like people might say, oh, well, now you're addicted to kratom. And I'm like, well, no, look at it like this. Why is it bad for me to supplement with kratom, but it's okay for you to go get a Xanax from the doctor? You know what I mean? Like I hit a wall of anxiety about 3 years into my sobriety, dude. That was like crippling. And a lot of addicts hit this, you know what I mean? Like I was actually going to talk to you about that. Like, about 3 or 4 years in, there's this anxiety that hits. And so I end up going to the doctor and I was red flagged. I was like, I won't take anything narcotic. So they end up putting me on a beta blocker and hydroxyzine, which would have been fine if I wasn't a fighter, because what a beta blocker does is lower your heart rate. So while I'm fighting, dude, my heart couldn't pump the blood to my arms and legs and shit. And then when I stopped taking it, it really messed me up. So this is where I found kratom. I would take 3 capsules in the morning and 3 capsules at night. And then, went to that kava bar and kind of experienced that. And I was like, dude, this is going to help people. And so we opened up the only one in Montana, the only kava bar in Montana.
Yeah. And so I'm pushed. I think I'll be 1,000 days in August, if I remember right. I don't even, honestly, man. I don't even look at I know I'm 800, 900 days, whatever. I just look like, you get so used to it. You don't even know what the day is. Yep. I have the app on it every day, remind me, but I forgot what day number it is, but
yeah,
you peel back those layers, dude. And when the anxiety attacks going, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
It's so much on our sleeves.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I got cleaned up. And now it's like, there's no block, there's no sponge, there's no filter. It's just boom.
Yeah.
Like, it comes straight out. And for me, it's when I feel, and I had one of these a couple of weeks ago, when an event comes and you thought it would not flip your foundation. All of a sudden it just flips your foundation. You could have, like, you go back to the original, you don't relapse, but your patterns go back to shit that you like. So like, go find that dude with the Lambo, go find whatever. And you just get so absorbed into it because you're such an addict and you want that, you need it in it. And all of a sudden now you're like, what the fuck just happened?
Yep.
And like you were talking about the anxiety. And for me, yeah, that's what it is. It's like, you fight this internal battle that, like, people don't get it. They're like, oh, can't you just flip a switch? I'm like, no, like,
yeah,
I'm all in or nothing. And if it's not up to my expectations or vice versa, it's not going as fast as I want to. Yeah. I have a lot of patience, but the patience get override because it's like, we crave this success.
Yes, dude. Meditation really helped me like a lot. Like, the idea of meditation is, you observe a thought go by, but you don't react. You don't go down the rabbit hole. Well, that's just like doing one mental push-up. So then when these things do happen, we don't fly off the handle. You know what I mean? Yep. And this is what I was teaching a lot of addicts. So so when I had the patch guy, I was hiring addicts and I was having them go to the gym with me in the morning. I was having them journal and meditate. And this is how I kind of found out that I was like a coach, because I was already coaching people. And the crazy thing is, man, is if somebody goes to treatment, right, they do all this self-work inside the rehab facility, but then when they leave, all that self-work stops. Yep. And that's when you need the self-work, is when you're facing these trials and tribulations, you know what I mean? And so I always try to pitch this, like, find something that you love and dive in exactly like you did with your addiction. You know what I mean? Like that is the best way, because you are actually more capable of greatness than just an ordinary person if you can channel that energy. You know what I mean? For sure.
And for me, and you're the same way, because you're ripped to the gills like me too, or not, like, you're more ripped than I am right now. But for me, it's running and beating my mind up. And everyone's like, they're like, why are you beating the shit out of yourself? I'm like, because I know in my mind I have to do it. Because it feels like if it's built up, you literally just have to go like crush it. So like for me, am I a runner? No. Do I want to run a marathon? No. Do I know mentally I need to run a marathon? Yeah, because to that 1%, I have to go do that. So like for me, I will take whatever fucking pain I need to get to cross that finish line.
Hell yeah, man. That's so true. And, that's why I love David Goggins. He says it the best, man. He's like, do the shit you don't want to do. It's going to prepare you for when you like have the opportunity to do the things you do want to do, or the things that, like, dude, MMA, man, like I use that example. It helped give me my discipline. So like, if I'm on a contract to fight somebody, whether I do the work or not, I'm fighting that guy. I mean, and it taught me to endure too. It taught me to like endure damage. And that, the main thing that I feel like, going from a junkie to training with some of the best in the world, it taught me like, I can do whatever the fuck I want in this world if I apply myself. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But it also showed me that we put a lot of these people, like famous fighters and stuff like that, on this pedestal as if they're not humans, but like they are. They're just cheeseburger eating dudes. You know what I mean? Like they are, dude. And like, the reason I say that is because addicts and people like us that have been through all this shit, we tell ourselves we're not good enough. But in all actuality, we're more prepared than most of these other people that haven't been through shit.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, we can keep going here, and I'm going to have you come back again. Cause I want to,
Yeah, man.
I know we went way over, but like for me, I'm like, we need to talk about the coaching and break it down on that way and go step by step again on that. But
yeah, man.
Let's end it. Tell everyone where we can find you. And then, like I said, I'm having you back again for part 2.
Let's
and then
do it,
we can go back into the business side of it. That's fine with that. So
that's
where can
awesome.
everyone direct to you?
Yeah, man. So on Instagram, I'm at Shane HAVOC Mindset, and obviously Shane Fichter. That's Fichter on Facebook. It's the crazy thing is my last name is literally Fighter. Like if you take the C out and put a G there, it's Fighter. Complete coincidence, but and then honestly, I'm offering TikTok too. TikTok at Shane HAVOC Mindset as well. And I'm also was going to give the audience, like anybody who does like feel like they want something more in their life, like passion, right? Like people are always like, I'm trying to find what I'm supposed to do. I'm trying to find my purpose. I'm trying to find my passion. Okay. If you go to HAVOC Mindset or HAVOC Mindset /bonus, we have a free webinar package there, and it'll help you find your purpose. It'll help you find what you love. It'll help you realize like what they call your ikigai, right? In Japan, They call it your ikigai. It's what you love, what you're good at, what you can get paid for, and what the world needs. And there's that webinar, and there's a visualization webinar on there that's really powerful as well. HAVOC Mindset /bonus. So
awesome, man. Thank you for coming. Like I said, we're going to have you back for part 2. And guys, this is the wrap on part 1.